Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode, let me double check. This is 237. Man, we're really cranking. And I'm excited about this week's show. We've got a lot of great topics to discuss with you in the land of social media. You know, we've got topics from IGTV. For those of you not familiar with that, that's Instagram, their own TV show. So we've got IGTV. We're going to talk a little bit about some new updates to some live streaming tools, as well as YouTube live enhancements, some awesome tools, and this week's guest. And so I'm going to go and bring on Jim. Jim is co-hosting. He's filling in for Phil Gerbershak. Phil's on a little bit of an extended break, but Phil, he runs Fusion Marketing. So I'm going to go and bring on, Phil. Jim runs Fusion Marketing. And this week's guest is Angus Nelson. And his website is angusnelson.com. So I'm going to go and bring on Jim. How you doing, Jim?
Doing great. I think the interesting thing about the current situations that we're in, it's really, because you and I talk about this a lot off camera, is just the whole idea of doing remote live stream production. And so I was pretty excited. Yesterday, I did my first remote production with a company out of Virginia, and we're doing a series of at least 5, they're calling them podcasts, but it's called The Art of the Possible. And so yesterday they interviewed a lady from Hilton, and it really went over well. They were thrilled, and we use StreamYard. So this is a great program platform to do that, and you don't have to get crazy technical, which I know sometimes you and I talk about. People sometimes try to do a little too much, but really excited about our guest today, Angus Nelson. Angus and I have actually worked together. He's a executive coach for high performing men, and I actually just finished working with him on a 3-month program where he really helps you get your mindset right, your goals right, and even getting you to get that your company or yourself going in the right direction. So he's in Nashville, and saw him speak originally. Where he really caught my attention was at Social Media World Lima last year, when he was one of the speakers. And he's a powerful speaker and just a great guy, and has an incredible story. He shows you that you can go through things in life and still bounce back and do great things.
Fantastic. So let's go ahead and bring on Angus. And, I've heard a lot about Angus. So I'm actually going to see about chatting with him myself. I mean, because mindset is extremely important, especially in business. And I will say right now, we're not going to harp on COVID-19 and all this other stuff that's going on, but mindset is very important. And I'm sure, Angus, you probably have a lot of people right now who they might be getting down on themselves because what all is going on. It really impacts them and causes them to have to change their business. But it's fantastic to have you join us on Social Chatter this week.
Thanks. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the kind words, Jim. And yeah, mindset's a huge component. Man, we could take the whole show and just talk about that. That's my jam. But one of the things I've been talking to some of my my clients and my audience about is this whole fact that there's an element of some of the stuff that we are giving too much attention to, and I call it the nope theory. In the nope theory, there's a element of 4 things. There is noise, there are opinions, and then there are these pressures and experiences. So all the noises around, it's all the chatter, everybody from media to the news on the newspaper to the magazines to the websites or whatever. There's news everywhere. That's all noise. Everything that's on your social channels is noise. And then
Mhm.
it's opinions. Have you ever noticed how many of our friends have now become healthcare experts? And they're quoting this and they're putting up stats and they're showing their spreadsheets. And you're like, when the hell did you know so much about this stuff? Like, they're projecting how this thing's gonna like spread. And then you've got the pressure. Like, some people are losing their jobs. Some people are in fear of losing their jobs. Some people are like, what do I do now? You're feeling the pressure and the anxiety and the underlying psychology that's just kind of appealing to your day. So that's why we're shopping for comfort food. We're not going and buying kale. We're going to go find Kraft macaroni and cheese. Like, we are looking for comfort, right? And then the last piece of it is experience. Like, in the past, it looked like this. In the past, it was, supposed to go like this.
Mhm.
New norms, man. Like, you
Mhm.
cannot let your old experience translate into a new world. And so that's nope. Just say nope to the noise, to the opinions, um, to the pressure and the experiences. And that's
It
how you can focus for being successful right now.
definitely, and I know there's, as you mentioned, I mean, we could take the whole show and talk about this,
Yeah.
but we're gonna have a couple questions for you later on in the show to talk about with viewers. So hopefully you'll, I know you're gonna have some great insight for them.
Yeah.
So Jim, you ready to kick things off?
Yes. I'm not going to say nope. I'm going to say yes.
Come on. By the way, I want to
Yeah.
thank everybody for watching so far. We've got Joanne Kroll. Thanks a lot for joining us. I know it's early, maybe for you. Where do you want to start, Jim?
I think let's start with what Instagram TV is doing with ads. I think that's definitely something people need to think about. We've talked about this a little bit more, but the fact that you can start looking at monetizing, I mean, it kind of goes in the way of Facebook and also YouTube as well if you get your subscriber channel up. So this really, as a creator, as a business, gives you a reason to say, hey, I need to start doing something with my Instagram TV. I might be able to make a little bit of money off of this if I have something of value.
Definitely, and I think the first thing we should probably talk about here is that you know you talked about that briefly. As far as money, like yes, you should be trying to monetize your business in a lot of these different aspects, but keep in mind that you're going to see all these other stories out there. And this kind of plays off to what Angus was telling earlier, but people are going to sell these stories about, oh well, there's this person making millions of dollars a year on a YouTube channel or an Instagram channel or whatnot. That is not the norm. So, you can't let that noise get to you. Maybe it should instill some confidence in you, but you can't let it get to you. But the bottom line here is Instagram, they're rolling out IGTV ad guidelines. Not a whole lot here. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, did you have a chance to look through the guidelines that they've rolled out, Jim?
No, I need to because I know I looked at the Facebook ones before and I'm not even going to try to go, worry about monetizing my Facebook lives because it's crazy the amount of views and everything you have to get in order to make it successful. I would almost say you would have to run ads to
Right.
get to that point to get an audience as large as they want for you to do that. I mean,
Mm.
Angus, have you looked at this stuff at all as far as monetizing videos on Facebook or
On
Instagram?
Not on Instagram. I mean, when I saw that news when you guys posted that, like, I think it's fascinating because, they're different audiences, and we're starting to see all of these different social channels kind of, in some ways become the same, but
Yes.
different, right?
Yeah.
Same in the context of the structure, the monetization, and, some of the algorithms are starting to kind of meld. But the other component is the audiences. So the
Mhm.
audiences are changing where, now it's like an older demographic has kind of come in and settled in on Facebook, but the younger demographic, kind of a median demographic is, now in Instagram. So that's, a whole different component. And then of course, then we get into TikTok, and it's only a matter of time, before that's going to be part of that activity as well.
Yeah.
And so these are the different components that are super interesting, but the getting paid for the time people spend on platform is
Mhm.
fascinating.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's, YouTube altogether. That was then Facebook. And now to see it, obviously trickle into IG makes absolute sense. It's a Facebook property.
Yeah.
And then I imagine, the next step will be TikTok. It's like there's going to be some ad revenues according to content creation there as well.
Well, and we probably don't think about it because I don't know, maybe you guys are big gamers, but then you also have Twitch
Mm,
and Mixer where
mhm.
you've got gamers, literally, you got some of these people making millions of dollars off of playing video games. And, maybe
Mhm.
if it'd been around, 30, 40 years ago when I was, playing the Atari
And a little Pong.
2600, I would have
Come
been all
on,
over it.
be all about it. Give me some asteroids.
That's right.
My
Yeah.
favorite video game back in the day. This was not something that you could find on, a console. It's actually you had to go in. I used to go play it at Godfather's Pizza. Do you remember Godfather's Pizza?
Yes.
And it was a game called Kangaroo, and that was like my jam. Where you'd like kind of like Donkey Kong, you'd like climb up ladders and go to different levels, and
Yeah.
these monkeys would be throwing apples at you and stuff. So similar to that, but you had a kangaroo with boxing gloves. Boom, 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 boom. That was my jam. And I was at my friend's bar mitzvah and I was getting my highest score possible. And all the kids were like crowding around me and were like cheering as I'm playing and I'm getting better and, give them higher score, higher score. And the kid whose bar mitzvah it was pulled the plug on the game because he didn't like the fact that I was getting all the attention. No, touche. To his point, it was his bar mitzvah. I shouldn't have been stealing it. But man, I was on a roll.
So I'll say this. I mean, the bottom line here with this whole, IGTV ad guidelines. I mean, if you look at the guidelines here, they're pretty straightforward. Stay up to date on Instagram's community guidelines. Basically, follow their terms of service.
Yep.
Only share content you created and which you have the rights to use. Very simple. Maintain an established presence for your account. Very simple. You open an account, keep it going, or if you don't want to earn any money on it, don't use it. And then going into like some of the don't post content you didn't create or don't have the right to use. Don't post content that could be considered false, misleading, or overly sensational. Don't share content in ways that compromise quality for viral distribution. The bottom line is they just want you to follow the rules, for IGTV, and it's not going to just lead to generating lots of revenue. I mean, you have to have good content, that your audience is interested in. And that could be something as simple as like, okay, so I'm going to share a tip. If somebody wants to find what kind of content they should be creating for IGTV, ask your audience, send them maybe a form or send them an email or go live on Instagram and ask them to send you a DM with, what kind of content maybe they want to create. What about you, Jim? What do you think people should do to figure out what kind of content they should be posting on IGTV?
Well, I mean, one, maybe go look at it's they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Go see the people that are maybe in the same area that you are that are successful and see what you can take from that, but don't try to be them. Still be yourself. One of the things like that I'll say, that Angus helped me with is like, he's like, there's a ton of marketers. How do you set yourself apart in what your message is as a marketer? So I now do marketing the Marine Corps way. There's not a lot of people that do that. I might be the only one, right, Angus?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things with the don'ts, it's not clear here that we see a lot of people make this mistake is everybody always wants to bring in music and they don't have the rights to it. And then they get their stuff taken down and they go, well, I don't understand. Well, you got to know the rules, and it's not out there, but because it gets confusing, right? Because you can do stories using Spotify music, but it doesn't mean that you get to use it for IGTV.
Yeah.
Correct. So Angus, what do you think? Is it what if somebody wants to figure out? So if they want to make the right content to get some traction with IGTV, what should they do?
The common rule of thumb is that you go find an audience and then you create content for that audience. I have a different rule of thumb. I don't even call it a rule of thumb. I don't know where rule of thumb came from, but I have a different philosophy. And that is this: we attract what we are. And likely the content you're already creating is already attracting a certain persona.
Okay.
And just do more of that. Now, if the persona you're attracting is not the one you want, then you can start modifying your content and you can start stepping up. Like for me, when I started having clients, I was at a certain level of people I attracted, but now I want to attract a higher level of clients who have either a different way of thinking, a different affluence, a different mindset, and trajectory. So I had to improve and raise my content. Well,
Okay.
that's another part of the philosophy. And I wish that more people recognize that the value that you are is what you're bringing to the table. I love what Jim said is, continue to be you. It's
Mhm.
just you start modifying it a little bit by a little bit incrementally to attract higher level engagement, higher level audience.
Fantastic. So, Jim, where anything else you want to add about IGTV ad guidelines? Or
No,
wanna
I
move-
think I think I think it's definitely, take a look at it. It'll probably tell you if you're eligible for it. I mean, I think there's probably still a lot of people that haven't even
Mhm.
done an IGTV video,
Yeah.
Right.
which I think is still it's 10 minutes. I think you can get more if you're someone that's producing a lot of content on there. But kind of goes back to what Angus said, right? Every platform is basically become the same in some aspect.
Mhm.
So don't sit there and say, "Oh, well, now I got to go get on Instagram TV." Well, if you haven't been spending time on Instagram to begin with, why are you going to go there?
Yeah.
I had this conversation the other day with a lady. She's like, "Well, I put stuff on the same post on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook." And it's like, "Well, what's your ideal client?" Well, B2B. I said, "Then why are you on Facebook and Instagram?
Mm,
Focus on LinkedIn."
yeah.
And
It's a cool thing. It's like, well,
yeah,
no, it's not. It's exactly.
yeah. But yeah, since we're talking about Instagram, they're actually doing some stuff on desktop, and makes
Mhm.
a lot of sense because we're all sitting in front of our computers right now because we're not allowed outside.
Mhm.
So yes, but they're letting you now watch the Instagram Live on desktop, which I think is a great move. I think a lot of people want more ability of Instagram on desktop because it's just easier. Maybe it's because like I don't know, it's the thumb thing, Angus, but we all can't manage these little cell phones and smartphones to do everything, and we want to have this bigger space of the desktop to do things.
It's fat finger syndrome.
Yes.
I
So
got to
yeah.
say, the timing, obviously the timing makes the most sense here because if people are at home, so like chances are people are viewing on mobile when they're out and about. I mean, maybe people are like walking down their hallway or their house and they're like, checking their Instagram feed, but I don't think they're doing it as much being at home. So I think having the ability to view Instagram live videos on the web, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think this is going to all of a sudden lead to every single Instagram feature becoming available on the web, but it definitely makes sense for Instagram to roll this out. What do you think, Angus? Good move?
Yeah, of course. It's all timely. And furthermore, going back to what we were saying before, about an older demographic being attracted to Facebook. Well, desktop is where this other demographic is most comfortable. What is the next step for Instagram to expand its tenure, its longevity, is to now bring in new audience, because their audience from Instagram is eventually going to go to someplace else, whether that's Twitch and
Right.
whether that's TikTok or whatever. So in order for them to stay in the game, is they have to think about what's their next audience. Going to desktop is going to make it even more accessible now to a
Mhm.
new audience, because the kids are going to complain, but the parents are coming. It's just like we slowly will navigate over there next. That's when people get tired of Facebook and they're like, I need something different. They're going to go over to Instagram. So like a lot of this is kind of the building the longevity of a platform.
Mhm.
So it makes sense in that, number one. And then number two, to Jim's point, is what a great time, for them they've probably been working on this for a while. All of a sudden they just hit the pedal to the metal and accelerated their deployment into the marketplace. And here we are.
Definitely. And the other thing also I want to make sure I mention here is just something that's highlighted in the article. So if you check out this article, it's from Engadget. There's not a whole lot here, but the one key thing is you cannot start a broadcast from your desktop. That is a key point that I want to make for everyone. So, if you're like, well, hey, I want to even let's just take StreamYard, for example. That's the
Yeah.
platform that we use for social chatter. You cannot broadcast to Instagram.
Yeah.
If there are tools that say you can do it, they cannot, because Instagram does not make it part of their API access. So that means that these software companies do not get access to do it. The ones that do have this functionality, um, they are basically violating Instagram's terms of use, and you can actually get your account banned if you use that tool. Now, as far as the fact that like you can only view from desktop right now, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. People can go on their browser. For example, there's no native Instagram app on an iPad, so they could go through the browser and view the content. Again, it's about viewing. So if you're looking for a shortcut here, there's not a shortcut. You still have to create it on mobile, but you can view it from desktop. And make sure that's clear to everybody.
And it's likely that that will be deployed later. If this is a rush to market play, which I suspect it is, then this gives them some protection that they only have to deploy what's actually functional, what's actually working right now. And one other caveat to this is something that's interesting, kind of related, is just know that the content you're putting out there, there was a Supreme Court lawsuit that was just settled that stated that the ownership of that is now, you've relinquished your ownership of your images and your video for putting up an Instagram. So if you're teaching proprietary intellectual property or something of that nature, just know that when you're putting that out there, if you're a photographer and you're putting that out there, that you have relinquished your rights to it. And so if some other company wants to use that as user-generated content, there's now some real discrepancy as to the ownership rights of that because of this new lawsuit that's been a judgment that's been placed.
Yeah, wow, that's huge, because I think before, like, that was kind of people's fears, like, oh well, I got to ask permit. I mean, I think we'd all agree you still should ask people if you're going to share their content or give them credit. But the fact that you've got this ruling that kind of goes where it's more like the public domain type of information, that's huge.
Yeah, it just came out yesterday. I would put it in the comments here. I don't have a comment. Let me jump into Facebook here where I can put in the comments.
I think you might be able to, maybe go in and leave it. But so the other part to that, I mean, the fact that I actually think that makes a lot of sense, that if it's in public domain, that it could become user generated content if you think about it, because, Jem, you and I get this question all the time when we're working with people on live video. And it's the fact that, they want to use a countdown timer. They want to, they want to use some music that they found. They found it on Google, for example. And it's like, well, it's on Google. Why can't I use it? And it's like, well, you still need to ask people for permission, regardless of, hey, it's out there. Just make sure you can actually use it. We go through this a lot as well for people that want to do maybe a fitness. You and I've talked about this, Jim, a lot about people wanting to do a fitness video, or they want to do some sort of workout video at home. And they're like, hey, I have a license to use, music in my business, my physical business, and I want to now do something online because I don't have my physical business. And the thing is, you got to read that terms of use. I mean, they are very strict in the fact that you can probably only use it at the physical location. You need a separate license for live streaming. So definitely keep that in mind. By the way, Mona Jordana says, hey, you know what? She says she's loving using Facebook Creator to post to IGTV and Instagram and Facebook. So if you do have content you want to get out there, definitely check out the Facebook Creator platform as well. So thanks a lot, Mona, for letting us know about that. So Jem, where are we going next?
Well, let's talk about a new StreamYard feature. They're doing 5-minute overlay videos.
Okay.
I think Angus's new camera cut out on him for a second.
Oh no.
We can hear you.
Oh no, hold on. Let me change cameras. Maybe it conked out on me.
So they've gone to where the overlays were 30 seconds, and now we're going up to 5 minutes. So it's an interesting feature, and that's actually how you start this show. You have the overlay, is what that is. It's not an actual, overlay / video. But going to 5 minutes, I think it's a nice feature. But as you and I were talking before the show, why do I need a 5-minute overlay? And what's your thoughts?
So, me or Angus?
You.
Okay, so I know an overlay serves a couple of purposes. So, for example, my overlay that I use, let's under that 30 seconds because that's what was available at the time when I created it. But I think overlays are useful at the beginning and the ending of a video. So if you want to make an intro or an outro, they're fantastic for that. Now, am I going to watch a 5-minute overlay or a 5-minute intro video or outro video? No. I would say maybe a minute max, for something like that. The only way I could see a 5-minute video being useful would be this. I think if I'm going to do a 5-minute countdown timer, maybe 3 to 4 minutes of that would be, I launch the show 3 to 4 minutes early so I can kind of make sure everything's ready to go. And then I can have, 1 to 2 minutes of that, or even just a minute of it for an intro video. I wouldn't, though, say, hey, let's make a 5-minute intro video just because I can. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think this goes back to what we've talked about before. Is and even the 3 pillars of StreamYard, right? Easy use, professional looking streams, and just that whole aspect of it is why do I need a 5-minute overlay, right? I mean, it's just like people that are always saying, "Oh, I want to do a, what is it? All these crazy things they've been talking about wanting to do on these videos." It's like, just do green screens, right? It takes
Right.
so much lighting to do a green screen, right? Do you
Mhm.
really need a green screen?
Right.
And it's like you're adding all this technical aspect. It's the basics, right? It's your content that people are there for. They're not there to see all the gadgetry. And
Right.
and I think that's part of the challenge, is that people get too complicated, right? Just it's the KISS method. Keep it simple.
Mhm.
I mean, Angus, what do you think about 5-minute overlays? Do you
I don't
see?
know. I was so panicked here getting my video back on. I'm totally lost.
So, the bottom line, StreamYard launched 5. So they previously let you do a 30-second maximum video length that you
Mhm.
could apply to an intro video, an outro video, a mid-roll. But they've now relaxed that and increased it to 5 minutes.
Mm.
So, should people make 5-minute intro videos? How do you think they should do it? I said, hey, maybe do a
Yeah.
couple minutes of countdown and then do like an intro video. What do you think?
So I'm really big on engagement, period. So the real question here is it creating engagement? If people are engaging, then what's it matter? If this is catching their attention, it's bringing them information or entertainment. And that's some of the key components. Education and entertainment are 2 key components. If you're giving that hook, then that video should be bringing them into your content in some form that is complementary to your message. And so if it's a recap, let's say, I mean, this is just my creativity kicking in. Whenever you watch a new show,
Yeah.
it's gonna like bring you up like in the last episode,
Right.
and it's
Yeah.
gonna like give you that high intensity, fast cut, bam, 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 and then it keeps you up to speed. So if you've got some kind of episodic show that you're creating, like suddenly that makes a ton of sense.
And one example I like to give people, by the way, is this. I like to tell them, you know what, when you watch, and I realize you can fast forward if you're watching Netflix or like anything like that, but
Mhm.
I always tell them, watch a movie or a TV show, the introduction that's there.
Mhm.
That's your hook,
Yeah.
and for the most part, like, yes, every intro to a TV show is like, some sort of fade in. They start to introduce, go down the list of characters, the director, and the main actor and the supporting actor, all the people that are featured in that show. Maybe there's a couple of B-roll scenes, but roll through that and then they get right into the show. And for example, if you find yourself fast forwarding past the intro of like say a TV show,
Mhm.
maybe they need to like scale that down and make it a little more engaging, because it's not doing enough to keep people for watching that 2 to 3 minutes instead of getting right to the
Mhm.
content. So I like Jim's method as well. Like, keep it simple, but less is more, I think, on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim, anything
Yeah.
else you want to add there, by the way?
No, I mean, I think it's a great tool, and I see that Mona had a comment about. She said she thinks that StreamYard is the PC equivalent of Ecamm on the Mac. I think it's actually something that you can use on both. It's actually, because we're both Mac users, so it's just really a matter of how technical do you want to get. I mean, I have Ecamm. The issue though with Ecamm is bringing in guests.
Right.
And that's where StreamYard is easier, because otherwise, we'd be having to use Skype to come on, and I think you would be limited to, is it 3 total on Ecamm?
I don't know the like, number offhand, but you do have to bring them in via Skype. And Skype, I'll say this, I mean, Skype is a very resource intensive program. So you have to bring in somebody via a virtual camera. It's pretty seamless, but it's not as easy as using StreamYard. But I will say this, I mean, Angus, you and I were talking about this before the show. So like StreamYard is great for producing an interview style show, or if I want to just do like a quick tutorial, but I don't necessarily need to maybe zoom in on certain parts of my screen and whatnot. It's good for that kind of stuff. But for Ecamm, I know you and I were talking about this, Angus, because we're working with the Ecamm live video summit as well that they're doing. It's the fact that
leap into live streaming.
Yes.
Their product is, it's very good for like being able to do to basically have different scenes that you're working through, to create your full video that you're making versus, StreamYard. It's mainly for like ideal for interviews and things like that, I think. So that's my thoughts. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like StreamYard is just drop dead easy. That's what I love about StreamYard is it makes it super easy. And that was my first intro into this realm. And quite frankly, one of the advantages also is they have connection with LinkedIn Live, which I have access to as well. So in Ecamm, you have to go through a third party to get to your LinkedIn Live. So that's one little caveat. And then the interview base, that's a little bit of, a sidekick that you got to have, the Skype. Where I think the advantage goes to Ecamm is if you think in context of presentation. If people are going virtual right now and you want to give some kind of a talk or presentation, I think Ecamm has some really cool capacities in the fact, like we were talking before, like I have 3 camera setup. And so I've got, a camera here on the side of me, a camera, up below me, and then, one direct on. And now all of a sudden I have production value that keeps things super interesting and these overlays and everything else that now you can bring a live presentation onto a virtual world versus, just being one track, one screen, like that can get kind of boring. So I think that's an advantage to Ecamm is to create a little bit more interest in what's possible.
And it depends on what you're doing as well. I mean, so if you're producing a show, where like you in a way almost script stuff out, like, Ecamm and StreamYard both have like similarities there, but it really comes down to how much more you want to push that envelope. And I mean, I like to say this, I mean, as Jem mentioned, use the right tool for the job. So, a lot of people are talking about Zoom right now, and Zoom is great for online meetings. If you're going to do like you're going to be teaching a whole lot of people at one time and you want them all on the same screen. But Zoom, for instance, is not a live video platform. A lot of people will say, hey, they try to use the one tool. And it's like, well, it sort of works, but it doesn't work like it should.
And it's got that long delay, that big drag, when you're into Zoom. And the other thing I was going to say, and this was what you were just kind of alluding to, I think, in StreamYard, you can already preset some of your lower third little tidbits in there. And so you can ask the questions or create the statements or quotes that you want to have and basically guide yourself with some notes through the presentation, because that becomes your triggers to the next component. Because here's one of the things too about live streaming is I have something to say. One of my like little things that kind of gets annoying to me is when people are like, oh, just wanted to jump in and blah, 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 and just banter. Like, I suppose there's a place for that, but if you're about thought leadership, if you're about serving and adding value to people's lives, like have some kind of context. Like this morning, I did my first live. I was telling you guys using this Ecamm thing, and it actually turned on by accident. And I'm over here like fumbling. Right here is the laptop, and it was just looked all junky. And then I realized it was recording. I'm like, hey, and we're live. And I told everybody out the gate, like, this is the first time I've ever used this. Hey, check this out. And I jumped to camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Like you just, that was just like, oops. But I had something to say. I said, but don't go anywhere, because what I want to talk to you is about the main thing, and to keep the main thing, the main thing. And of course, I had another acronym for that one too. So adding value.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to do quickly, I mean, you mentioned this about being able to have like bullet points in a way or lower thirds and whatnot. I'm going to share like the the StreamYard screen right now, actually.
Yeah.
And you'll see along the sidebar here, you'll see these are the lower thirds that we have for this show, for example.
Yep.
Things that in a way, like, you can drag and drop to reorder them, but you can quickly, this can be like, okay, this is the first point I'm going to make. This is the second, third, fourth, and so forth. So you can go directly into your important points that you want to get across on your broadcast. So definitely something you want to keep in mind there, but that's easy to do in StreamYard, like very
And you
easy.
can save those. Like
Yeah.
you can organize them, and you can have like, if you have some systematic, kind of approach to some of your talks that you do, like a weekly show, like you can have some folders that are saved with just
Right.
the things you need, the elements you need for that particular show. It's pretty cool.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah. So that's what we got from StreamYard this week. 5-minute overlays. Again, be very careful with how you use them. If you're not sure, if 5 minutes is like long enough, or should it be 3 minutes or 2 minutes or 1 minute or whatever else. This next topic, actually, I think we should talk about, Jim. I think this is a topic that people should definitely pay attention to. And it's the fact that YouTube is rolling out live stream analytics for creators. And, and I think this is a really important point. And it's the fact that you can now go into your videos and you can see the ones that are native videos versus the ones that are live versus the ones that are YouTube Premiere videos. You can go in and see the breakdown of each stream to see which ones are generating the most views and the most time on your channel. What do you guys think about this? Is this, a good feature to have? How do you think a business should approach this?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think when it really comes down to it, you've got to have ways to measure effectiveness. And
Okay.
it doesn't matter what platform it's on. That's why sometimes people say, well, I want to live stream on my profile because I don't want to have a page. It's like, why? You can't tell how you might see views, but you have no idea how long people watched it for. You can't use ads on your personal profile.
Right.
I almost, I know some people might not like it, but I'll say I almost call that lazy, right? Like go through the rigor of if you're a business, be a business. And not to mention, you could theoretically be violating the terms of service on Facebook of using your personal profile as a business page. And that's not supposed to be what you do. You can share business stuff on your personal page, but you go to Facebook jail, you're going to lose. So I think this is great because that's actually a question people get, like, well, how do I know how many people watched my show live?
Right.
Well, and so if you get an idea, because a lot of times it's not so much about the live viewers, it's about the replay viewers.
Yes.
Because you're just never going to find that perfect time that everybody can come watch your show. Even though maybe right now, theoretically, they have more time, they should all be watching this show today, especially because Angus is here.
And by the way, to that point, by the way, if somebody were so right now, another useful feature to this is the fact that you can go and you can see, the breakdown of live versus on-demand viewing for YouTube creators. And you can also see whether somebody's watching a live stream versus they're actually watching the replay, and it really is a no-brainer. I mean, yes, live video is a fantastic tool. However, you do have to be mindful of how much time you spend doing it, because if you're just spending time doing it and you're not getting anything out of it, maybe you want to consider doing native uploads. I mean, you can get a lot of value out of a YouTube natively uploaded video, much more than you can doing a live video if you don't have the audience or the community. So
well,
anyway,
when you consider how many of these YouTube creators that are huge were doing this before YouTube had live, and I wouldn't even necessarily say that some of them are using live as their way to continue to grow their channels, because they are actually putting together a production value video where they're doing cuts and takes and editing it because they don't want to, the value of live, right? Like you have the little things that go wrong at times. Angus's camera dropped off. Well, if this was a recorded video, you could have edited that so nobody would have ever known. But the show must go on when it's live. So no, I think this is great. Great that they're providing this information to their users.
So Angus, what do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, in the same component, you got to have an audience first before live even makes sense. But you can't improve what you don't measure.
Right.
And so if you have an audience and now all of a sudden you've got backdoor analytics to find out what's actually, going on, now you can improve. Oh my gosh, we're losing a lot of people at a minute and a half. That means we're not giving them a big enough hook. How can we do that in a live setting to, create the hook that we want to create? That kind of analytics gives you the visibility into what needs to be modified, improved, so that you can keep people around longer. Because in YouTube and all other channels, especially, but YouTube, people are making money from views. So the more attention you can keep them on platform, you also gain a revenue stream. And so that's an important thing to note too. So if you've got thousands and thousands, if not millions of followers, you can get them onto a live. And now you've got them on a hook because you've got a relationship and rapport. It's less dependent on the content, more dependent on the relationship. And you've already created this rapport. Now you can get away with ridiculous stuff. And now you're doing like a 2, 3, 4 hour live and people are camping out because they just want to be a part of whatever you're doing, versus most small, medium businesses. They get out and they're like, let me show you about my tchotchke. And now you're going to lose people because you're not doing it or positioning in a way of interest and storytelling and, compelling content. And that's when looking at these analytics will show and reveal to you, hey, that was probably a little too salesy, or that was not focused on the consumer, the customer, the actual ideal client.
Definitely. And I think that's really important points that you made. So anything else you want to add on the topic of this whole, these new YouTube analytics?
No, if you're a YouTuber, you definitely want to check it out. I mean, it's definitely worth doing. And it's I think all the platforms are trying to give us more data. The question is, will at some point they try to charge you to get extremely detailed data?
Yeah.
So with that, so I know we've got more news topics, obviously, that we love to discuss, but we want to make sure, we value your time. So we want to make sure we also let you spend some time with Angus, because again, I mean, we brought him on not just to like banter about social media news. So Jim, do you want to run through some questions that we had for Angus?
Yeah. So Angus, one of we got 3 questions we wanted to ask you today. And the first one is, why is it important to identify your ideal customer? And I think that's something that in your business that that's something that you've got really good at.
Yeah. In fact, so my day job company is a Golden Spiral Marketing, which is all focused on B2B technology marketing. So you're looking at fintech, cybersecurity, health tech, a SaaS focused product. Those companies, like, they're looking at a very defined audience. It's a limited accessibility to the kind of, market that they're going. So when you have a limited market, you've got to get super streamlined on your messaging. And by doing that messaging, you've got to appeal to the emotion, the challenges, the fears, and the needs of your ideal client. And that's where most people miss it, even on B2C, is they don't look at what is the actual thing that people want. We're really good at talking about, our technology. We're good at talking about our tchotchkes. We're good at talking about our origin story. We're good about all these other things, but we're sometimes and often forgetting about the customer. What's the problem that your product or service solves? And how are you articulating that in an emotional way that people feel compelled to learn more? And so, yeah, I think it's super critical that you identify your ideal customer.
Awesome. And so we'll go to the next question would be, Angus, Can a business have more than one target customer?
Um, they absolutely do. And here's what I mean by that. Particularly in my space, B2B technology marketing, you've got different buyers at different levels with different needs. So in one company, you could have a CEO has one context, a CMO has a different context, a CRO has a different context. So they're looking at different mandates that are placed on them in terms of performance, in terms of revenue, in terms of, growth. Those are all things that are articulated in different ways. And though they may be looking at the same mountain, they're all looking at it from a different perspective. And therefore, the messaging needs to be modified according to their needs. So if the more that you know who that specific buyer is, the more pertinent it becomes. So in a B2C space, it can look different as well. If you have a product that can appeal to a woman who's in her late 20s, who maybe has one or two children, that's going to have a different need set. And then that same product, you could cater to a teenage male who's all around sports, then you could message it a different way. It all depends on who you're marketing to, your product and service, how it appeals to that person, and then positioning it in such a way. And so having multiple personas is possible. Absolutely. The caveat to this, I would say, is if you try to please everyone, you obviously will please no one. That is the common phrase, and it's true. And so the more that you can identify who you're going after in specific campaigns, the better off you are. That could be seasonal. That could be, according to like right now where we have a certain situation. And so you're appealing to real time, relevance. Or it could be lifestyle. Where are they at in their life cycle? Maybe they're at a different age, a graduation, or they're coming out of some program. Like these are different things where now you can have touch points that make your product or service a little bit more relevant. Change of season. I just had the HVAC guy here coming and fixing some stuff on my HVAC unit. Like getting into your audience in early spring before everything gets busy and chaotic, like that's the ideal time for them to appeal to parents, to appeal to the changing season. Like the messaging is now wrapped into the ideal need, the ideal person at the ideal time.
And finally, Angus, what steps can a business take to identify their target customer?
Sure. So in our company at Golden Spiral, we actually have a proprietary exercise we call the buyer matrix. And I'll show you kind of a simplified version if I can share my screen here.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see if it'll let me. Share screen. I hope you will work. Opens. Oh, now it's asking me to do open preferences. Like, yes. And then it's going to say quit. No. Okay. I can't do it. So let me draw it out for you really quick. Like everybody knows, like this kind of mind map, right? And I'm just kind of
is this
conjecturing
to, or is this something that you have you have something you want to share with people?
So this is something that I actually have not built into something, but I could build something for you. Let's see where the focus is. I can do this manually. Let me do a manual focus here. All right. So you've seen a mind map type of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So imagine this over here is their customer. So here's a CEO, and then here is a CRO, and then here is, SVP of marketing, or here is whatever. Like these are the different components. And maybe if I switch hands, this would be easier. So these are the different people. And then this right here then triggers them to a different need. So this is a pain, a challenge. Like these are the different things that they're facing. And you list out all of them. And right now I just have an example of 3, but it could be 9, it could be 12. Like they all have different pain points. And then you would do it another component off of this would now become here. My focus is like, and now you're going to do another, layer here of what is your solution to solve that pain.
Okay.
If you can do that, you are suddenly articulating everything you would need for your copy, for marketing and sales copy. You're doing your content calendar. You're doing all the components for how to communicate on a sales call. Like you're following and creating a new journey, a buyer's journey, all by putting in that work. And it looks, this right here looks kind of simple, simplistic, if you will, but the time that's required to do this right can be a little bit more invested. So if you take a day, you take 2 days or 3 days, depending on how big your company is, how big the potential buyer market is, suddenly now you are articulating very specific and precise messaging. And those are the things that people can feel compelled, like it's almost like inception, like, what I'm experiencing, what I'm thinking. And now the message now becomes this invitation for them to know, like, and trust. Because you've actually taken the time to get into their world, to stand in their shoes and to feel what they're feeling, to think what they're thinking, and to see from a viewpoint that they're seeing. Now you articulate your product and service in a way that they immediately feel attached to. It's the hook, it's the gravity, it's a connection. And it's like, you love me. You really, really love me. That's what they're feeling. And now the conversation has changed in dynamics considerably.
Fantastic. So we're going to make sure we get all those points. We're going to put those into the blog post recap that we'll be publishing this weekend. Let me see if anybody has any questions or comments on anything. So,
yeah, Mona seems to have a question.
Yeah, I was trying to read that. I'm not wearing my glasses, so now it just looks like I'm angry because I'm squinting.
So I'm going to put this up. Let's see how I've never put this much text on screen before. So let's see how it looks. Sorry, Angus, we cut part of your head off there.
It's okay.
Actually, you could do a really cool, that's perfect.
Okay. My avatar is Betty Boomer. Seasoned woman is business that hates social media because it leaves her feeling frustrated, stupid, and overwhelmed. But she has to be there. The problem is she's not on social media too much. Facebook seems to be the best platform for her age group, but I struggle finding groups, hashtags, etc. for them. Any suggestions? So there's some assumptions I have to make here. I don't know what your business is, your service or your product. I'm assuming that you're a marketing person, either you're a marketing agency or, in some way you're a consultant. That's my assumption. Mm-hmm. So if I'm approaching it from that perspective, you're looking at Betty Boomer, and the invitation is, do you struggle with Facebook? Do you struggle with your business being able to appeal to the right people at the right time? Do you struggle with not having enough time in your day to commit to social media in the ways that are important to your business? Do you need help with that? All of a sudden, now you're speaking to all those components you just shared with me. Those are very real needs and pain points. And so if you're that, it just says you're a 101 coach, right? So you're teaching them these first things. This is exactly what I just shared with you. So one other aspect that you didn't mention here would be security. For boomers, a lot of them jump on Facebook, and the last thing they want is for all their posts to be seen by all the world, because they think it's going to say something about them and where they live and what their social security number is and what their credit card numbers are. And they're afraid of all these things that they've heard. Mm-hmm. So the number one thing you could, present to them is, do you want to have your Facebook be secure? Suddenly you're messaging something that's meaningful to them. If it's somewhere where this business could appeal to, I don't know, I want to take it from a personal person and say to appeal to their families or to the grandkids and be able to connect, but that's a whole different element. But if that's part of your business, that you're not actually appealing to businesses, but actually to individuals, well, then take that approach. Do you want to be able to share life's experience with your grandkids? Do you want to be able to have conversation with them using Messenger? Like, speak to the things that are going to be appealing to them and the things that are going to be meaningful. My wife and I were invited. We actually were doing a contract for a cruise line, Regent Cruise Line, which is the luxury version of Norwegian Cruise Lines. I highly recommend it. They invited us to kind of explore with them how to reach their boomers and how do they build growth in terms of people that would come and, be patrons of their cruises. And so I came up with an idea that said, what if we taught social media classes on the ship? And Wi-Fi was now becoming more prevalent. And so my wife and I actually got to go on a cruise from Athens, Greece, to a number of different stops all the way to Venice, Italy. Again, highly recommend. And they're super pricey. And one of the things that I said is the people that are on these ships, the most viable potential clients you have are their friends and family, because like attracts like. And so if they're already in a place of affluence or wealth or, some kind of status, then it's very likely that their family and friends are also going to be such. What if we could get them to create content through their social channels that would create some FOMO amongst their peers? And so we actually taught a class for them. And the first thing we taught was security, how to lock things down and have it only appropriate to the things you want. Second of all, we showed them how to take pictures, how to post those pictures, how to post their videos, and how to do slight tweaks to maybe add a filter to make it pop. And we did a little onshore excursion, and we took some photos and we actually walked through them. So we did a series of classes through the cruise line. We did, I think, 7 or 8 classes, taught them how to do that, and then created a Facebook group that they could all share their experiences. And now that Facebook group is now the Facebook group for all their boomers that are going on their cruises. And they're creating this massive amount of user-generated content. So now it's even adding even more value to the cruise line, because they're actually getting access and insight into what these people are finding valuable, the things they're taking interest in, and the content they're posting, asking them for permission. So now they can use their photos, use their videos in some of their promotional content. Awesome. Meet the need.
So I think that's a great, just like great example, I guess, going through that, and helping Mona with that, so thank you so much, by the way, for sharing all that advice as well.
Sorry, that was a lot, but
it was awesome. That was awesome.
Hopefully that helps.
That's why Christian wouldn't come back on camera. He was like,
I was over there processing it all, actually. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to have Angus, if you can, by the way, I'm going to have you give us a couple of bullets. After the show. We'll drop those in the blog post recap for viewers, so if they didn't get a chance to watch and they want to actually read through some of this, we'll put that in the blog post recap.
And I can send you that graphic, the one that this rudimentary one. I actually have a slide. I can just kind of share that with you as a
perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure we get that included. So now what we're going to do real quick is we're going to move into tool time. And this is where we have 2 tools. This could be hardware, software, whatnot, that we've identified that can help you as a business, help you get more out of your business. So for example, Angus talked about being on a cruise ship. Cruise ships, right now they might have, well, not right now, but cruise ships might have, spotty Wi-Fi. You might need, certain gadgets and whatnot, maybe to help you while you're on that cruise ship, for example. So we try to highlight something that might be useful for you. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about 2 tools. Jem, where do you want to start, by the way, with the tools? Because I know, I've talked about them.
Yeah, let's start with Kapwing, because I find that very fascinating, and definitely something I'm going to check out.
So I've got Kapwing pulled up here. Do you want to tell viewers about Kapwing?
Yeah, so Kapwing has both a free plan and a paid plan. And so with the free plan, you can upload a video up to 10 minutes. And what's nice is they don't actually put the watermark on here. A lot of these companies with a free version make you have a watermark, and it'll let you caption your video. You can do a bunch of other stuff. There's memes, there's everything else. The only limitations is the file size, and they'll store it for 7 days. So that's be something that you want to make sure you download it, which a lot of times I'm like, well, why wouldn't you download your own videos? Why keep it somewhere else? Right. And then the paid version will let you do videos up to 40 minutes. That's $20 a month. And they say they have premium features. We really couldn't tell what that was, but this will let you create, however you say, memes, memes, GIFs, Jiffies, I don't know. But it definitely looks very interesting. I think it's another, and that's Angus. I always joke that Christian creates all these issues for me, because he's always giving me all these tools, and I get into the FOMO of tools, right? I don't want to miss out because I didn't try the tool out.
Mm-hmm.
So this though looks really really interesting, and I think the biggest thing it's the captioning, and they even talk about it in here. 85% of people watch, and I'm still trying to figure this out. 85% of people watch a video on Facebook with the sound off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can't
yeah,
figure out how to turn it on, maybe because you got to
that
tap.
could be it.
don't-
So if you can caption the video, not to mention the accessibility issue for
Mhm.
people that do have these challenges, if you're able to caption that video, you're going to get more people involved, and that's where YouTube has that automatic closed captioning capability that some of these other platforms don't have yet. Because I think they're all starting to see that it's definitely a need. But yeah, I think it's definitely. Like the idea of this. I'd heard about this from someone a few weeks ago, and now we've brought it up here, and so yeah, Kapwing, it looks like good stuff.
And it does a lot. And I think the point that I want to highlight is that, if you're someone who wants to make video content, yes, you could do all of this on your mobile phone. Or sorry, you could do the video shooting and editing on your phone. If you got like an iPhone, for example, or an iPad, they have iMovie. If you just need basic editing, you can open a video that you record and you can actually do trimming really quickly just with your fingers. But where Kapwing actually really shines, I think, is it gives you the studio aspect. So you can go in, you can build a video from start to finish. And, chances are there's a bunch of templates in there as well that you can work from. But where it also is very useful is instead of having to go to another tool, it has a meme generator. It has the ability to take your videos that you create and subtitle them so you can tap into that audience as well. This means you don't have to learn an NLE editor such as Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere, for example. You can also add, for example, if you maybe make a video and you want to add some sound effects, you want to make something a little unique about it. It's got that functionality. It's got video resizing, so you can make your content fit the platform it is going onto. There's a whole host of features. I mean, these are all features that it gives you, which are pretty fantastic. The fact that you can watermark your videos and whatnot. What do you think, by the way, Angus, about Kapwing? Have you had a chance to use this one or use something else?
I haven't used this. I actually use some other tools like you were just saying about your phone. And here's one of the things that I run into is I can do different things with different tools. And oftentimes I have to combine things. Like I'll create it in one thing and edit it, and then I'll have to export it to another thing to add music, and then I'll have to export it to another thing to add captions or something like that. Right. So like my fantasy is that somebody will finally figure this thing out, that it should I could just shoot a video. B, it could automatically jump cut it, which there's an app for that already. Right. And then extract parts and pieces of it into multiplied content. Yeah. And it would have images with some of the quotes that it already pulled out from, automatically putting in the captions. Like, definitely. To me, that is a miracle drug right there. Mm-hmm. Nobody's done that yet, damn it. No. But like, that's what I'm running into. So I look at a tool like this and I can say, you know what, if they can already, do you have to import the subtitles or does it do it for you? It looks like there's a subtitler in there. It does look like there's a subtitler, actually. And if you get the paid version of it, the paid version does give you the SRT file. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go over here to the pricing page. Definitely some, here's the thing. I think it's worth checking out. I mean, it's $20 a month if you want the pro plan. You try it out, use the free version of it, see how the features work, and then go from there. If you do want subtitling, I mean, I use a tool. It's called Aegis Sub. And that basically is a way for you to get your SRT files really easily. Mm-hmm. But like you said, you also then have to import them back into the video metadata. Mm-hmm. So I've been using Headliner. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's just so many tools now. Have you noticed, like, it's now we're on Onslaught. Before it was like one tool would come up, shiny object, and you're like, yes. And now there's like boom, 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 boom. Yeah, like a lot of people like Quick, and Quick is a nice tool, but then you get into, do you want to get charged by the minute if you're doing a ton of video? Like, that's what keeps me away from it. It's like, I don't like the per minute type products, and but then it's kind of like, well, how much do I want to have to fix it? Because the ones that sometimes aren't by the minute
don't quite do the same transcription level that
Mhm.
others do. But yeah, it's
Right.
they
By the way,
keep coming out.
total side note. This is related, unrelated.
Yeah.
If you use Zoom for meetings, there's
Mhm.
now a new feature that's starting to pop up where it's doing auto transcription
Mhm.
if you have their paid version,
Yeah.
which I
Yes.
think is magical, especially if you use Zoom for podcasts or something like that. It's just a matter of time. I mean, we're streaming on YouTube. YouTube is basically extracting everything and turning into searchable, words and keywords.
Mhm.
Darn it, just throw it in there. I shouldn't have to think about it. It's the AI should be able to do it for me. You call yourself AI, you're artificial intelligence. Like, I don't have to think about that. You should know what I want already.
100% agree with you. So that's the first tool, by the way. It's Kapwing. And if Kapwing is listening, by the way, uh, Angus has some recommendations on how we can build the best products. So make sure you check out that portion
So
of the.
far, fascinating. I definitely want to dive in deeper.
Yes.
So the other tool we have is called Podcorn, and this is geared towards people who are podcasters, but they want to monetize their
Yeah.
podcast. And it basically helps you get connected with basically advertisers. So
Mhm.
you're looking for a unique. You have a unique piece of content you want to get out in front of people, and so you want to get connected with the right brands, whereas the brand might say, hey, you know what, we have certain things that we want to get in front of our listeners, and we want to work with podcasters. So it's basically a meeting space, I guess, in a way, if you look at it from that
Mhm.
perspective.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about this one?
No, I think it's great. I think that this is the struggle that a lot of people have, whether they're podcasters with this one specifically, but even
Mhm.
live streamers that start to build an audience, is how do they monetize their efforts? I mean, a lot of times monetization it's kind of like a book writer.
Mhm.
The purpose behind this is not that you necessarily looking for listeners or readers, is that you want them to do something else with you. You want them to hire you as a coach, or that you want them to take your course. And so I think, if you just think like, oh, I'm going to create content, and I'm going to get paid for producing my content, it's not quite as easy as it sounds. So I think it's great that there's a platform now that can maybe help those two parties come together, because there are some brands that maybe think like, hey, if I could get my my widget talked about on this person's show, I
Mhm.
might get more sales. So I think
Mhm.
it's great. I just wonder if this will ever be something that opens up to live streamers. What do you think, Christian?
I think at some point, I mean, it needs to, it should, I would hope, just because people are going to want to, they want to monetize their show. And the thing is, if I go to somebody right now and I'm like, well, hey, I want to, I want to monetize my show. They're going to ask me, okay, well, they're going to say, what kind of viewers do you get? And then if it's a software company, they might say, well, hey, like, why should I pay you when I can actually give you the software for free, for example,
Mhm.
versus actually giving you, maybe the software and the money. So, it is honestly, it's a very uphill battle to monetize, a podcast or a live video show. So having something like Podcorn, I think, would be very useful. Having it for live video, even more useful, because that's the direction I think things are trending.
Yeah.
What do you think, Angus?
So much of this is based off of per mil, right? Which is for every 1,000 viewers or 1,000 downloads. In our live stream, we would say viewers, but in the podcast world, it's all based on listeners. That's how typically brands will price, their per diem, per show, or whatever. So it might be $25 per mil is what they'd call it. So you may not know this. So I'm a co-founder of the Nashville Podcast Meetup here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
We used to have monthly meetings up until COVID. Bless that little virus's heart. And so we have over 1,100 people in our Facebook group, and every month we get between 50 and 80 people in attendance. So I know a little bit about podcasting in this
Yeah.
context. And so many of podcasters are looking to make money for what they're doing. And so the first thing they think of is advertising. So in one respect, I think this is super curious, super interesting to know what the model is. I'd have to dive in deeper to see if they're doing a per mil model or if they're doing a per episode model. Because sometimes if you can find niche, you don't need a big audience. And so the dynamics change if someone is speaking to a specific niche that's right in the core of your product line. And that's what we emphasize in our meetup, is that you are better off to find a brand that's going to sponsor your show, not based on the typical per mil, but rather based on the audience and message or story you're telling.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make more money by saying, hey, I'm in this perfect niche. You guys would be a perfect fit. We have ideal clients. I can put you in on a pre-roll, post-roll, or mid-roll, and it's going to charge X amount of dollars. And that price you can give them is a flat fee. It's not based on how many listeners. You just say, $150 per show. You can say, $75 per show, or whatever you decide that that's going to be for that particular part of the role. And then if you can get 2 or 3 customers in there, or, advertising, that you're ideally set up, for success to actually monetize your podcast. And the last thing I'll say to this, because I'm passionate about podcasting, which doesn't have a whole lot to do about Podcorn, but I'd say if you have a product of your own, that's your best advertisement.
Definitely.
Is that your show is already catered to an audience. And if you have a product that's going to serve them, or a service, you want to pitch that. You'll be far more ahead of the game to profit a lot faster with something that you have massive control over.
Definitely.
Great point.
100% agree with that. So anything else you want to add about these tools at all? Any other ones you want to recommend maybe?
Yeah, well, I mean, just in light of this, if you're just starting and you just want to go and explore, like, I go check out Podcorn. Like, I have no problem with checking it out. I think it's, like I said, I'm really curious. I might jump in myself. And then for the video one, like, I think some of these apps are getting closer and closer to being really amazing, and video is the future. So something like Kapwing, not really a big fan of the name. If I'm going to be, I come from a branding agency. That name's kind of weird. It doesn't say what you do. But, aside from that, it looks like what they're offering is super valuable. And it's the more that small and medium businesses can be able to get out in front of their audiences with things that are going to be appealing to the eye. Aesthetics are important. And the sophistication of your product or service being matched by the sophistication of your messaging creates congruency that people can trust. If you are putting out stuff that's kind of junky or crappy, then they have the potential of also assimilating your product or service to be the same. Aesthetics are super important.
100% agree with that. So I want to thank everybody, by the way, for tuning in this week. Jim, thanks for, again, co-hosting with me. Angus, absolute pleasure having you on the show. I do have a question for you, for viewers. If they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Angus at angusnelson.com. Shoot me an email, questions, comments, or concerns. Happy to help you.
Fantastic. So just a quick heads up, we're going to be publishing the blog post recap, and that's going to be going out this weekend. So again, Angus, that was what? Angus at angusnelson.com?
angusnelson.com. Yeah.
Perfect. So make sure you connect with Angus. We're going to make sure we put his information as well that he shared, about finding your buyer persona, finding your target or your ideal customer. Make sure we put that in the blog post recap. And then we're also going to be going live again next Thursday. Jim, I know you're going to be excited about this one. We're going to have next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Stephanie Liu is going to be joining us.
Nice.
And that's going to be, I know, like, this is like the run up to like the eCam virtual summit. I know, because we're all presenting on that one. So next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Stephanie Liu. She goes by Hey Stephanie, and that's on facebook.com/social chefs or youtube.com/social chefs. With that, I'm going to take us out, but it's been a pleasure having you both on. Thanks
so much. I just put a link in there in the private chat to a mindset training accelerator that I created. It's a freebie. Like, if you're listening and you're going through stuff and you need to reset your brain, reset your focus, and get yourself accelerated into the future of opportunity, then this is it's about an hour-long video that is just going to take you through my process.
We'll make sure
it's a great video
recap. So thank you so much for sharing that with me.
My pleasure.
So we will see you all next week. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks for
Bye.
having me, guys.